Was I wrong about Halo Infinite? Before this game actually came out, I was very nervous about the quality it would be released in, because after so many major developers have left this project, the amount of times there were some very troubling leaks, I was genuinely a bit thinking that this game would launch undercooked. And I was sort of right. This is a fun game. I'm glad I beat it. I'm going to just completely finish the map. But as it stands, Halo Infinite doesn't seem like a full product. What's up, gamers? Dreamcast Guy here, and this is my honest review for the Halo Infinite campaign. Now, if you have any interest in the Halo Infinite multiplayer specifically, I've already done a separate video talking about that, because I've done about 65 hours of the multiplayer, and I'm kind of a monster at it. But today we're going to be talking about the story, this open world elements of it, and the changes they've made that I do think improve the Halo gameplay style. But to begin with, let's talk about the story, because this is where things kind of feel the most undercooked. Halo Infinite is almost sort of a reboot. It's taking things back to the roots. It's just Master Chief alone on a gigantic Halo ring, a huge unit out in the middle of space covered in aliens and some very basic puzzles. Despite having a familiar setting, Halo Infinite is a very different animal from previous freaking games. Like, first and foremost is the fact that this is a very expansive map. At any time you can choose to go to pretty much any of the major areas. Later on you do unlock different pieces of the map, but you can just straight up drive from one end to the other. In fact, at one point, just for funsies, I decided to use my grapple hook to climb to the top of the very highest mountain in the entire game, and just getting a chance to glance at this huge territory, it began to sink in that this is the new age of Halo. Now, in the course of this game, you kind of realize that you need to have played the other ones to get this. I know that Halo Infinite sort of wants to be the jumping on point. This is almost sort of a reboot, but if you haven't played the previous 6 Halo games, which is the main freaking series, and also Halo Reach, you're not gonna understand a single bit of what's going on in this game. In fact, it's probably a good idea to at least Google the plot lines of the spin-off series Halo Wars. Halo Infinite tries to establish this new threat called the Banished, which do kind of suck. Like, not to be overly rude, but the problem is that the Banished are sort of like a new style of the Covenant. They're evil aliens, but this time their cult is even more vicious. They worship power and might. Their goal is to try and hunt down Master Chief and dismember him, but not for any sort of like specific holy reasons. They just want to do it because they think it'd be a really good time. But during the course of this game, you really get a chance to see that this almost feels like the later seasons of a TV show, like, you know, at the end of Game of Thrones, where they started just trying to invent problems and invent solutions. This does sort of feel like just another excuse to have Master Chief shoot stuff. Maybe that's enough. Just getting a chance to shoot aliens is enough fun for me. But let's talk about how things have managed to shift in tone. This is a game that tries to be funny, which still feels strange. Every single character you encounter attempts to make jokes. Like, straight up, you can even listen to the aliens talking while you're hidden, and they'll make jokes about trying to drink farts. Master Chief makes all sorts of dry lines about, we need to stop this weapon no matter what. Like, every single character tries to make jokes, and it feels like this Marvel Cinematic Universe thing where they stop, they make an awkward joke, and then they acknowledge that the joke is awkward, which feels kind of inappropriate. Like, if the jokes were good, maybe I'd be more forgiving of it, but it's weird to hear people discussing humor in the middle of a massive intergalactic war. But I guess that's kind of just the nature of modern day writing. But let's talk about the quests in this game, because here is where I feel like the game is the best and also the most different. The clearest way I can explain this is that there's basically 2 separate styles of missions. There's main missions and there's side target missions. Now, they're basically weird because all the side quests are above ground. These are things like trying to knock over a resupply base. It's rescuing a bunch of civilians who are stuck on this ring. Or it could be things like trying to take out a high-value target. Whereas main quests, they're all underground. These are times where you're exploring Forerunner installations, hacking into secret ancient computers, or sometimes just figuring out new giant plot reveals. And during the course of this, you realize that these two separate types of game, they're fun as heck. Like straight up, the gameplay is truly king in Halo Infinite. Getting a chance to use these new gadgets, these new guns, actually blowing up people, like I cannot express how exceedingly fun this game is. Like straight up, I'm gonna make a dramatic statement. Screw the story. If you mute this game, put on some freaking music and just hunt down everybody from one corner of the universe to the next, you're still absolutely gonna get your money's worth. I loved every second of the combat itself. Even when I was cornered and getting hunted down by some really powerful elites, I enjoyed the thrill of battle. The controls in this game are just so pitch perfect when it comes to trying to drive around in a car and blast targets, or stealing a Banshee to fly to the next mission, or sometimes just ambushing an enemy units that's between two of the major bases. Like, it feels so good to just screw people over and punch them to death. But more than that, I really enjoyed the mobility of Halo Infinite. Making this game open world was definitely my biggest concern, because some games, when they try and give you a big open map, it feels empty. It feels useless. But here, every inch has a purpose. Even if it's not directly connected to the next major quest, it's nice to just sort of appreciate all the tiny details that are hidden around this world that make it feel much more realistic in an alien sort of way. Like there's times where I was just hesitating inside of this spooky factory and watching what seems to be this like anti-gravity freaking crafting machine. It looks so cool. Like stuff like this makes it feel like a more built and established universe that we are unfortunately stuck trying to save. Now this brings me to the key factor of the Halo Infinite's story that I really appreciated the most, which is that there is a surprising amount of respectful delicacy to this. A lot of stuff is very nonverbal. Sometimes just the storytelling in the environments, seeing things happen around you, is sometimes done in a way that feels better than just straight up saying the lines. But one part of the spoken dialogue that really managed to impress me is that Master Chief's past has always been something that's a point of contention. It's something that I've always been the most interested in, because Master Chief was a child soldier. He was kidnapped at 6 years old and put in the military program that made him become Master Chief. They raised him. They surgically augmented his body. They built him into the super weapon. That way he could defend humanity. And even though he is the best at his job, he lives a lonely existence. They finally address that. Like, there are actual lines in this game where he very emotionally talks about the fact that even though he is humanity's savior, and that even though he has personally stopped wars by himself, it sucks. Even if you're the most heartless, cold, killing machine, sometimes you want to just have somebody hug you and say, hey, great job. It's cool that they finally decided to address the fact that Master Chief, even though he is the best at what he does, his life isn't perfect. He is somebody that is constantly stuck in these infinite wars, just waiting for the next battle to feel alive. Now, to rewind for a second, I do want to talk a bit about these side quests, because they have pretty much no plotline to them. I've done a bunch of them. They're usually things like taking over a small base, which gives you a new fast travel point. There's major bases, which usually just hurt the Covenant, or sorry, in this case, the Banished, and these let you do things like dismantle huge reload bays, take away their weaponry. This is stuff that can permanently weaken the enemy forces. But the best ones are these special target site quests. These are where a guy is particularly strong. This is somebody who's like a master sniper, or a dude who has a huge rocket launcher or something like that. If you take out these high value targets, you permanently earn their weapons. This creates almost a snowball effect during the course of the campaign, as you slowly weaken the enemies and strengthen yourself, as you find more hidden collectibles that let you go into the talent trees and give Chief more shields, more armor, more stuff like that. there is this power creep that makes you infinitely stronger than the enemies you face. Like, by the end of the game, even when I was facing these super bosses, I killed everybody in 30 seconds. This game really gives you the tools to just be as strong as you want. It's possible to just speedrun straight to the end of the game in probably 5 or 6 hours on normal difficulty, but part of the fun of this is becoming the ridiculously strong Master Chief. It is trying to explore the map, get these freaking ridiculous super weapons, and then one-shot bosses. I kind of enjoyed that. Now, I do want to warn you, it's strange, but this game, it repeats bosses a lot. You're either fighting an upgraded brute, which, as I said, you're going to kill in 30 seconds, or there's a couple big robots, which I don't want to show you, but it actually repeats a big robot boss a couple times during the course of this game. And I definitely consider this to be a downside, because the Halo series has always had some pretty crappy bosses in general, so I wasn't expecting them to reinvent the wheel, but the fact that you just fight mildly stronger brutes as boss fights again and again, it's a bit stale. Like, after a while, this does feel a bit like filler content. And this brings me to the real crux of the point I wanted to talk about, which is that there is a series of repetitious elements to this game. A lot of times you are just walking in to press a button and then walking out. 99% of the quests are walk in, press a button, and leave. Like, literally 99%. Now, occasionally they make you find these things called power seeds, which make you charge up a button, which you can then press. But this is the entire game. After a bit, I discovered that some quests can let you sprint past them, and once I realized I could run past aliens, I started doing that a lot. Like, because there was just so much of the exact same thing happening again and again and again, I found myself getting a bit bored of some of these elements, because after a bit, it was like, all right, time for another freaking trip through this exact same looking area, and then straight back up to the surface to try and take over the next optional base. Here's the problem. It's not just that I have to press a button, it's the fact that I feel like sometimes this does feel like it's meant to slow you down. It feels like they wanted to stretch out the story so they could brag about how much there is to do. It feels like they sort of ran out of time during development, especially with the ending of this. I feel like they probably should have called this Halo Infinite Chapter 1, because there is elements in this that straight up do not feel complete. There are times where I was flying around the map in a Banshee, and I could kind of notice where they're definitely going to add in extra zones, extra content, and by the conclusion of this game, it feels like a gigantic question mark that says, "To be continued." This also applies to the environments themselves, and also the fact that there's no co-op. Like, straight up, I'm putting clips from the entire game hidden throughout this without the context, so you're not getting any spoilers, but straight up, all of this is the exact same big, empty, grassy fields. Every part of this is the exact same fields, which kind of lets me down because I enjoyed, in the past Halo games, getting a chance to go through big snowy areas and fighting against aliens, or trudging through swamps and fighting against the flood. The fact that in this game we only fight the Banished and a couple Sentinels makes this feel like there's going to be more content still in development. Like, straight up, the developers have even said that they're going to add in more of the features to make this complete in 6 months. Stuff like Forge mode for the custom maps is coming much later. What's weird is there is no ability to chapter select. The only way to play this game is to beat the entire game and then start a new game. Like, you can't just replay a mission if you enjoyed it. It feels really weird, but sometimes you'll beat an area and then get locked out. There are parts of this map that, since I completed the game, I cannot go to, and I have to just wait 6 months to see them again because I'm not going to start a new game unless it's on a higher difficulty. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. The fact that this does not have actual co-op, the fact that I have to play through this game alone, does feel like a detriment. This is a huge map. This is such an expansive, gorgeous, fun world to explore. I like all the nooks and crannies and unlockables. I really enjoy taking over these bases, even if it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But the fact that there's times where I'm pinned down by enemy fire, it feels like there's supposed to be a second player in this game. Like, it's straight up constantly definitely you get the vibe that this was made for co-op. It's made for two people to assault these bases and enjoy all this crazy content. And recently, I was replaying some of Halo 3 with my friend Jessica, and during the course of this, we realized how much more fun Halo is even when you're having bad times. Like, I got stuck in a ditch because I'm an idiot, and we were cracking up because it's co-op. It's fun, it's goofy, it's great, it's time with your friends. It makes this world feel to be a lonesome experience because you know that Master Chief really is just one man against the world. At least until May, when hopefully we finally get campaign co-op. I enjoyed this game for what it is right now, but I'm definitely one of those things where you should play this on Game Pass. While I did enjoy beating it, and I'll probably go back at some point to do a legendary run, it's not one of those things that I would really think is worth the $60 as it currently exists, especially because now we know the disc itself doesn't even have actually anything on it. This is one of those games that's great for Game Pass. Enjoy the multiplayer, enjoy the single player, and in 6 months when this game is more complete, I feel like the conversation is going to change. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Halo Infinite's campaign an 8.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, gamers. If you would, please give this video a gigantic thumbs up. Let's see if this video can hit 5,000 likes so I truly feel joy in my dead heart. You guys are awesome. Hope you have an awesome day, but most importantly, keep dreaming. Hey there, gamers. So I just finished editing the video that you're currently watching. It is now 8 a.m. The sun is rising up. It was a fun all-night editing session. And I wanted to put a just short final note here at the end, which is the fact that this game is now a total package. When I reviewed the multiplayer, I gave it a 9.5 out of 10 because I still think it is exceedingly fun despite the fact that the battle pass and the microtransactions are very, very stupid. The game is still free and it is still exceptionally freaking fun to play. Now, I've given the single player an 8.5 out of 10. So as a total package, I'm comfortable saying that I consider Halo Infinite, as it currently exists, a 9 out of 10. These are just my thoughts, though. Always, you can feel free to be mad as in the comments because some people, this is their entire lives. Enjoy the console wars. I'm going to go back to playing everything on every system. Much love and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.